the man accidentally overheard his father talking to a lawyer. Not only had he long since tricked his mother out of her company, but he was also planning to kill his only heir. The man was stunned, until he heard something even more shocking over the phone. He and his stepfather were not related by blood at all. His mother's sudden death was actually part of his stepfather's carefully planned scheme. Filled with rage, the man was about to rush forward and beat him, but then he saw his stepfather, overcome with arrogance, suddenly suffer a heart attack. His stepfather trembled as he pulled out a bottle of pills, but his hands slipped, and the pills scattered across the floor. The man quickly stepped up, pretending to comfort him, telling him to stay calm. But the next moment, he kicked the pills under the sofa, because in his previous life, he had chosen to save his stepfather, only to end up dead himself. Back then, he had kindly driven his ailing stepfather to the hospital, but just outside the operating room, someone struck him from behind, knocking him unconscious. As he struggled, he pushed away a nurse, trying to call for help, but out of nowhere, the housekeeper's son raised a wine bottle and smashed it down on his head. Before the man could react, his stepfather wrapped an arm around the housekeeper, standing before him, coldly watching as he collapsed. It was only then that he finally understood everything. His stepfather had been secretly involved with the housekeeper all along, and they had even had an illegitimate child together. The only reason he had married his mother was to steal her fortune. For years, he had been secretly poisoning her, until she fell gravely ill, and now that she was dead, he wasted no time making his move on the man, because once he was gone, his stepfather would inherit everything, and then reunite with his lover and their son. Staring at this hypocritical and ruthless man, the man made a vow with his dying breath. If he had another life, he would make him pay. The next second, he was reborn. Time rewound to one day earlier. His stepfather was in his office, smugly calling the housekeeper, excitedly celebrating his imminent victory. But he got too worked up, and suddenly suffered a heart attack. Trembling, he pulled out his pill bottle, but his hand shook, and the pills spilled all over the floor. Just as he reached out to pick them up, the man suddenly rushed in, and kicked the pills under the sofa. To avoid suspicion, he immediately ordered the secretary to take his stepfather to the hospital. The secretary intended to take him to the nearest hospital, but the man firmly insisted on sending him to a medical center dozens of kilometers away. 2 hours later, his stepfather was finally wheeled into surgery. While the secretary went to pay the bill, the man dialed his lawyer, ordering him to transfer all of his stepfather's shares immediately. He thought his stepfather was as good as dead this time, but unexpectedly, he survived. Though he had become a vegetative state, he could wake up at any moment. The man's eyes turned cold. Since that was the case, he needed to eliminate this threat once and for all. He claimed he had something private to say to his stepfather, and asked the doctor to step out. Once they were alone in the ward, he slowly reached out his hand, ready to pull the plug on the ventilator. But just then, the hospital suddenly lost power.